temporary tariff exemption for the auto industry. That's the latest change from the Trump White House. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The goalposts have shifted again in Donald Trump's trade war on Canada. The U.S. has confirmed the auto industry will now be exempt from the tariffs for a month.
But Premier Doug Ford isn't ready to back off his retaliatory measures, saying he won't budge until Trump removes all of the tariffs. CTV's Siobhan Morris has the latest.
It's a move that could save some auto plants from going dark in a matter of days under the weight of tariffs. From the White House, a limited lifeline.
We spoke with the big three auto dealers. We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd.
The heads of Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors asked for that meeting. But the future is far from certain.
Round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody knows.
Auto manufacturers and parts makers are trying to understand if the exemption applies to them.
There is no way to audit for compliance if you don't know where the parts come from.
The premier digging in on retaliatory measures.
There's no such thing as half pregnant. You know, we either have zero or we're going to get on with the show here.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick called Ford yesterday, urging him to cool it.
I spoke to the Prime Minister earlier. We're on the same page, zero tariffs, and we are not going to budge.
Lutnick continues to maintain this is not a trade war, but a war on fentanyl.
We need to see the Canadians and Mexicans put long-lasting protections in to protect America. Not this, oh, I'm doing a lot of work for the last 3 weeks. Give me a break.
On social media, the U.S. president said he told the prime minister in a call that efforts to stop the flow of drugs aren't good enough, saying the call ended in a somewhat friendly manner. The message from Donald Trump to the big three automakers for the next month.
He told them that they should get on it, start investing, start moving, shift production here to the United States of America, where they will pay no tariff.
It's an expensive, disruptive proposition Volpe insists can't be pulled off at the drop of a hat.
But he's talking about a 10, 15-year rebuild and turn of the industry at a time when it's under its greatest attack ever by the Chinese. He will bankrupt one of those American car companies if he forces the industry down that path.
CTV's Siobhan Morris reporting. So Premier Doug Ford is holding firm, meaning some shelves at Thunder Bay LCBO stores remain empty as the sale of American-made alcoholic beverages was halted across Ontario.
We purchase over $1 billion of alcohol, 3,600 products, 35 states. It's going to hit them.
The LCBO is one of the largest purchasers of alcohol in the world. The stores and warehouses quickly began removing American liquor, beer, and other alcoholic beverages yesterday. The directive has left LCBO outlets across the province with noticeable gaps where the popular brands once stood. As the trade war unfolds, Thunder Bay residents are adjusting to the impacts of these retaliatory measures, and there's a range of opinion about it.
Mixed thoughts. See, I'm afraid this whole trade tariff thing is going to create a war, which can't end well. I'm certain that there are American counterparts south of the border who are not happy with this arrangement either. So what do? Well, be careful with the moves.
Kind of sucks because a lot of the things I do drink are American, and yeah.
What are kind of your favorite brands?
Mainly Jack Daniels, and I was hoping I'd be able to get some today, but I had to make do with what they had.
What did you make do with?
Fireball.
I think it's great. I don't like the idea of, harming the producers in Kentucky. It's not so personal for me that I want to be harming individual Americans. There's a lot of nice American people, but Canada has to take a stand, and that's one way to do it.
As we first told you on yesterday's NewsHour, the federal and provincial governments pledged up to $240 million in conditional funding for a proposed lithium refinery on Mission Island in Thunder Bay. Frontier Lithium CEO Trevor Walker spoke with TBT News today. He says it's cause for celebration for the company and the region at large.
It's real win yesterday for Northern Ontario. It's support that's obviously is conditional, and there's still lots of work to get done, but great vote of confidence from both levels of government for sure.
With $120 million in federal funding conditionally secured and over $120 million more in provincial support under negotiation, Frontier Lithium is gaining confidence in its plans. The lithium conversion plant has an estimated price tag of nearly $700 million. The company recently bought the former Ontario Power Generation property on Mission Island for $3.3 million, setting the stage for what would be Ontario's first ever lithium refinery. Walker says if all goes according to plan, the facility could be up and running by 2030, but there's still plenty of work to be done before it becomes a reality.
We're close to pulling the trigger on some definitive feasibility work that's required to support, much of the information that's required to turn, support and intent into reality and term sheets. So we expect that to take 12, maximum 18 months.
The plant would process lithium mined at Frontier's Pack deposit located north of Red Lake. Once the refinery is up and running, it's expected to bring over 200 direct jobs to Thunder Bay.
Enbridge gas customers could see their bill go up next month. The utility is asking the Ontario Energy Board to approve a 12% price hike, citing a decline in natural gas inventory in North America and an increase in the federal carbon change, which is federal carbon pricing which is set to kick in on April 1st. Enbridge says the increase will cost the typical Thunder Bay customer $136 a year.
A potential new location for Thunder Bay's temporary homeless village will come back to City Council sometime in April, after Council rejected the Miles Street recommendation last fall.
The project recently received $2.8 million from the DSAB through the province's encampment response funding. City Manager John Collins says that means about half of the proposed capital funding is now in place. Jessica Clement reports.
The city has secured $2.8 million in funding through the Thunder Bay District Social Services Board to help cover capital and operational costs for the proposed temporary shelter village. The provincial funding was announced at a DSAB meeting 2 weeks ago. City staff worked closely with the organization to provide them the information they needed to get access to the Ford government's encampment response funding initiative.
They obviously needed to be supportive of it. They submitted it, and we received the positive result that we would get $2.8 million. Approximately $2,750,000 or so will go towards capital, which is tremendous news. It's about half the cost of what the infrastructure is going to require.
City Manager John Collin notes the funding means they won't have to dip too much into the Renew Thunder Bay Reserve Fund.
We received a commitment from Council to pay up to $5 million for infrastructure, and that money was going to come from Renew Thunder Bay. Now, with more or less $2.8 million coming from the provincial government, do the math, that leaves $2.4 million that would need to come from Renew Thunder Bay. Again, approximately half. And we're not done yet asking for other people's money to help with what we consider to be a very important initiative for this city.
The city has yet to approve a site for the temporary village after council voted against the East Miles Street location back in November. Collins says administration will put forward a new site recommendation to council in early April, but he would not reveal any potential locations at this time. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
A Lakehead University professor has released a new report comparing crime rates in larger cities across Canada and the U.S.
Livio Di Matteo also serves as a senior fellow with the Fraser Institute. His latest Fraser study shows that Thunder Bay not only ranks second in Canada for violent crimes per capita, it also is higher than 90% of the cities south of the border. Jonathan Wilson reports.
Canadians often believe that they are more peaceable than the Americans.
Livio Di Matteo is the author of Comparing Recent Crime Trends in Canada and the U.S. Urban Areas. The study, on behalf of the Fraser Institute, provides a different benchmark for cities like Thunder Bay, which almost always falls in the top 3 nationally for violent crime. However, when you added the 2022 stats for all the larger U.S. cities, Thunder Bay ranked 29th, right between Merced, California, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. 29th out of 297 cities in the two countries.
In the case of Thunder Bay, not only are we marked by more crime than the Canadian average, we also seem to be marked by more crime with respect to the North American average. And so that is somewhat disconcerting.
DiMatteo's study also provides a rare comparison between Thunder Bay and our nearest U.S. neighbors, Duluth and Minneapolis-St. Paul in Minnesota. The city with the overall highest violent crime rate in 2022 was Memphis, Tennessee. Winnipeg was the highest in Canada and ranked 12th overall. Thunder Bay was 29th. The Twin Cities were ranked at number 184, and Duluth was among the safest at number 244.
And, here's an example of two American cities that are, I suppose, the closest cities to Thunder Bay, because they're actually closer to us than either the Sioux or Winnipeg, and they have rates below ours. So, I think that is an interesting revelation. It's certainly not what one might expect.
As for property crimes in both countries, Pueblo, Colorado had the highest rate in 2022, but Kelowna, BC was not far behind at number 3 overall. The Twin Cities were 88th highest out of 297 cities. Thunder Bay was at number 132 overall and 18th in Canada. Duluth was ranked at number 175. DiMatteo says the study could spark a conversation with our neighbors across the border.
It would probably be quite interesting to take a look at sort of the social conditions and environment in Duluth compared to Thunder Bay. Perhaps there's something that both police forces can share with each other in terms of information to find out what they might be doing differently or what could be done differently in addressing the much higher crime rates in Thunder Bay.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Renovations are now underway at the Thunder Bay Pickleball's new home. The club is moving to the CLE grounds inside the auditorium building, formerly occupied by the Boulder Bear Climbing Center. The climbing center abruptly closed its doors last fall. The pickleball club had been using the Moose Hall as its main daytime location, but because of the uncertain future of the facility, the club began searching for a new large venue. The building at the CLE is now being transformed into a dedicated pickleball facility. Volunteers could be seen today prepping the interior to install an acrylic indoor hard court surface and nets for the smaller pickleball courts. Club President Jacob Krawchuk says after operating in a variety of spaces, it's nice to have a central location for more than 400 members.
So earlier this year, as you guys know, we started exploring the possibility of moving into the PACI space. That has had some hiccups on their end, dealing with just various issues that the law school needed addressed to meet their needs. Their students come first for them, right? And so we ended up leasing this space, what was previously the Boulder Bear Climbing Gym. We are going at a fast pace, and we're trying to be open in playing in the space with the new floor in first couple weeks of April.
Thunder Bay's amateur theater group Cambrian Players is gearing up for its latest production tomorrow night. It's called Home I'm Darling. It's about a couple who believe the 1950s were better than the present day.
Yes, we got it. She signed. Yes. Way to go, Toby.
Deviled egg to celebrate?
The story follows the couple who've chosen to live in a different era but set in modern times. The dilemma the pair is confronted with is deciding whether they should continue the charade. The cast has been rehearsing 3 times a week since the beginning of January. Director Andrew Paulson says it's been great to see it all come together.
We got a really great cast it's a cast of 6. 2 are new to Cambrian stage, and we just have had a lot of fun playing around, finding the characters, learning how they talk, and most importantly, learning how they interact with each other.
Judy is a stay-at-home wife. Her and her husband, Johnny, have decided that this was what they were going to do. She was going to be a stay-at-home wife while he went to work, and they transformed their home and everything in their lives to the 50s. So it's about, Judy and her life in the 50s and everything that's happening outside of it in the modern world and how it affects her day-to-day life.
The play debuts tomorrow night and runs through Sunday afternoon, and there are 4 more showings next week from Wednesday to Saturday. Tickets are available online or at the door.
Thunder Bay sailor Dan Turk has successfully completed the first leg of a grueling year-long race around the world. Turk and the other competitors in the Mini Globe race are all using home-built 5.8-meter plywood yachts based on the same design. Turk and his boat Little B are off to an excellent start. The local high school teacher finished the voyage from Antigua to Panama in 3rd place among the 15 competitors. That 2,200-kilometer leg took around 9 days to complete. The next leg will start on March 23rd, and we'll see the boats travel from Panama across the Pacific Ocean to Fiji.
Well, good sailing winds in Thunder Bay today. Unfortunately, Fiona, it feels like winter out there, and there's snow blowing around all over the place.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of snow, but with the winds gusting as they were, it certainly felt like it. We had this system moving through Lake Superior, and believe it or not, we were just getting the edge of it. The worst of it was definitely areas east. However, they enjoyed milder temperatures, so maybe it was, maybe it wasn't as bad. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, we started out around midnight at -2 and a wind chill of -7. Temperatures dropped almost consistently throughout the day to a low of -8 and wind chills of -16. Right now we're sitting at -7, so we're pretty close to the low for the day. And those winds, well, they have moments of being very light, 9 kilometers per hour, but for most of the afternoon they were gusting between 45 and 53 k from the northeast. So that's cold wind off Lake Superior. If we take a look at what's going on across the region at this time, well, they might have had snow in some parts of the overnight hours, but today, lots of sunshine to the west. Temperatures around -3 in Red Lake, Kenora, Fort Francis. Wind chills making it feel about 6 or 7 degrees colder than that. As you head further east, you can see this is where the cold air is right now. Greenstone at -14, and they've been sticking pretty close to that most of the day. Wind chills of -24 with snow throughout. Along the North Shore, equally cold, -14 in Marathon, -12 in Wawa. But Sault Ste. Marie enjoying a pocket of much milder air. They've been hovering between 0 and +2 for most of the day. So no surprise, instead of snow, they've been dealing with rain. Here in the city of Thunder Bay tonight, we are going to have a much more seasonal low of -13. Wind chills will feel like -18 overnight. There's about a 40% chance of some flurries after midnight, but here's the good news. The winds are going to taper off sometime after midnight. Unfortunately, folks, the bad news is they're going to return tomorrow afternoon, but it does come with good news, milder temperatures, and I'll have more details on that later on in the newscast.
It's a roller coaster. Good news, bad news, good news, bad news.
I like to play with the drama.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that's not the only roller coaster. When we will return to our top story. That, of course, is the 1-month tariff carve-out for the auto industry. That's how foreign economic policy seems to roll out of the White House these days, month by month, even day by day. It's always changing. We'll have more on that after the break.
We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA.